Welcome to the Money Business Podcast. I'm your host, Neal Regino. Today, I am joined by Nick Mondak. Nick is one of our newer advisors here at Evolution. Has a pretty cool background, and wanted to go through kind of how you got here and sort of what it's like to be a new advisor, getting started off in this career, and talk about the trials and tribulations, So first of all, thanks for coming on. Appreciate it. The starting point I'd like to go, let's just talk about what you were doing before you got here, kind of your background, and then what made you want to come into this industry.
Absolutely, yeah. So first, thanks for having me on.
Yeah.
It's, I was just saying my first podcast ever, so it's exciting.
Yeah.
But, yeah, so my background, I guess might be a little bit different than some advisors. Before this, I was playing professional baseball.
Sorry, 1 point for the new, put it closer to your face. Yeah.
You're always learning.
Yeah.
Especially I'm soft-spoken, too.
That's what I was thinking. So. Anyway.
Yeah, so before this, I was playing professional baseball. I got drafted by the Los Angeles Angels now.
Yeah.
Out of St. John's University, and spent about 3 years with the Angels, and obviously enjoyed my experience. It was a dream of mine. My whole life is to have that opportunity. So that was awesome, and I kind of just ran its course, and it was time for the next chapter. And this was something that I knew I always wanted to kind of get involved in.
Mm-hmm.
I was just trying to figure out what exact role I wanted to do, and where I wanted to be. And got connected with Evolution, and things just kind of lined up perfectly. And, I've been here approaching about a year now.
Yeah.
It's kind of crazy. It's already been a year, but yeah, I'm very happy with my decision. And, like I said, I enjoyed my experience in baseball, and that was something that, I'll never take for granted, but this new chapter's been great. And, the ability to learn something new and try and grow something new is something that really excites me. So, yeah, I'm very happy with where I'm at right now, and just got to keep putting the work in and kind of see what comes of it over the next couple of years.
Well, that's something when we first talked is, I always say it's a lot harder for people that come into this career, really any career that you have to build trust and people want to go with somebody who has a lot of experience and knowledge, especially when it's something as important as finance.
Absolutely.
But when you're in your 20s, it's really difficult. So for me, I always said it's hard for me to want to bring people into this career, but when they have that athletic background and you being at the peak of an athletic skill made it even more compelling that it was like, hey, I know that these people will have the discipline, they'll have the work ethic, and just having that athletic background. So I had a feeling that bringing you over here and convincing you this was the right place would work out for everyone. You've proven that you're willing to put in the work, you're competent. So let's, well, first of all, what made you gravitate towards financial services over other careers?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so, there was a couple reasons. Obviously going through college, that was, a big part of, what I was studying and one of my, interests even back then. But, and I always draw this comparison, and I feel like it's maybe a little bit of a stretch, but I like to think it makes a lot of sense. When I played baseball, what I really loved the most was I loved the preparation part of it. And that's kind of what I think some of the similarities you were just speaking to is, you're reading through a scouting report, you're watching hours of video on opponents and learning what you do well, what they do well, and kind of where that gap is there that you can, I guess, in that sense, expose a little bit. And combining that interest with, my interest in finance and all the different, areas you could study in that. But like the idea of, in a sense, I'm kind of building scouting reports now.
Yeah.
I'm trying to figure out with the prospect or the client what their goals are, what they want to achieve. And then it's my job to kind of, in the sense, the financial plan is the scouting report on, hey, here's a guideline of how we're going to increase our chances to get to that end result that we're looking for. And like I said, that was something that I always loved about baseball. And I think I see the correlation with what I'm doing now.
Yeah.
And so that's, what I think drives me the most is kind of still having that, and then the ability to you still feel like you're a part of a team.
Yeah.
And obviously any athlete, especially from a team sport, that's something that most people say once you're outside of the sport, you can't really mimic that. You can't replicate it. And I think kind of the atmosphere here, you get some of that feeling where you're still, on a personal level, it's kind of up to you in terms of your growth, but you have that support and that team atmosphere around you to bounce ideas off of and learn from.
That's good because that's the culture we're trying to build. So.
Well, we're on track, so that's good.
So I know it's, listen, for me, for most advisors, anyone who didn't inherit a book or didn't get brought in to an existing business has been where you're at. So I kind of we all get what you're going through. But let's talk about the good and the ugly. So let's talk about the ugly first. What's the most challenging part, and what's the hardest part of starting this career from scratch?
Yeah, well, you kind of already alluded to it a little bit before, and I'm assuming most advisors are going to say the same thing. It's trying to get in front of people, and especially being younger and a little bit less experienced than some of the other advisors out there. It's kind of building that trust and that confidence in that I'm a competent advisor. I know what I'm doing. I have support around me. It's not just me. You're kind of inheriting, like I said, that team of advisors. But yeah, just consistently getting in front of people and getting people willing to talk about their situation, what their goals are. But yeah, that's definitely the biggest challenge, I think, for me, when I can get people to sit down and talk to me. Like, I love that aspect of it. I love that part. I feel like I'm really, really good at that. It's just getting that initial contact, getting that initial conversation, opening that door a little bit.
It's always the hard thing. Now, you obviously you have a lot of the traditional ways that people try to get in front of people as far as marketing is concerned, but then you also have a unique opportunity where you're working in an accounting firm as well, which one thing that's, I'd say, a little bit differentiates us from other places is that we allow a lot of flexibility for DBAs doing business outside of the normal scope. But I guess I know you're kind of new at it, but from your experience, why do you think it's important to pair the accounting and the financial services together? Do you have an opinion on that?
I just think it's, they go hand in hand. They work together, right? And so, last thing you want is, I know you've kind of talked to me about this before, and we've had conversations around this, is you don't want all these professionals working in different silos. You want them to be on the same page. And, for me, I draw a lot of comparisons back to sports. And, I think about it as, you've made this comparison before too, is like the quarterback. If you're running a play as offense in football, you want every piece of that moving together. You want them all on the same page. And if someone, kind of goes off on their own, and that can kind of mess up the whole entire plan. So, I think just understanding the importance of, you're working with these professionals for a reason, for guidance, and, you want them working together. You want them communicating, and that's only going to create more efficiencies for you, and you're going to benefit from their services more if they're all, on the same page.
I have a frustrating situation right now. So I have a client. She's a multimillionaire, and she retired last year completely. She was still doing consulting work, but now she's no longer getting income. And I reached out to her. She connected me with her accountant the third quarter of last year. I asked her to make a plan for this year. And I reached out to him. He said, let's meet in October. Reach out in October. He says, let's meet in November. Kicks me out to January, then kicks me out to February, then said, let's meet after the tax season this year. And I said to him, I'm trying to plan her income for 2026 and other things that we're trying to achieve, and need to know the tax impact because you're the professional on that side. I'm like, I know it, but I can't tell the client that because it's not my role. And I just know it from experience, but I'm not going to tell the client or give any advice outside of the scope of what I do. And I said, we're 2 months in, almost 2 months in already. We're pulling money from a non-qualified account, and that's not the plan for the year. And the client finally called him and explained how important it was, and he said he's never done that with an advisor before, where they're planning a client's income, and I'm like, then what are you doing?
Yeah.
So, and I'm doing everything. I'm trying to be amicable. I have no intention of pulling her away from this guy. It doesn't do me any service.
Yeah.
But she's sitting there like, I need to find a new accountant.
Yeah, so
because they're not working together.
And that's where it's like the service aspect of it.
Yeah.
Where it's, if you're truly doing right by your client, you should want to be providing the best service. And that case is making sure that everyone's on the same page.
Yep.
So,
and there's a ton of different type of accounts. There's different things we're trying to achieve. We have to take into account gains tax and RMD from an inherited account, qualified money, non-qualified money, potentially conversions. And I'm like, I need the accountant. I can't do this on my own. But anyway, so let's talk about the good stuff. So what so far has been satisfying about what you're doing?
Yeah, I think seeing like the real world impact on, some of the work we do. And when I think there's some anxiety for a lot of people when it comes to talking to advisors, and just kind of having that initial conversation. And, I know we helped, some of my family out early on, kind of sitting down with them, and they were hesitant to do it for years and years. And just kind of hearing the response from them of how much better they felt about their retirement plan and the long-term effect of things, because they now understood what the plan was and why things were in place. And, I think just kind of having that groundwork allows them to live a little bit freer, a little bit more relaxed. And I think that's one of the things that, you can't really experience until you're in this business, of that true impact of the work we do.
Yeah.
When properly done and you really doing right by people, it could change people's lives, and it could really, affect how they feel day to day.
Absolutely.
Seeing that kind of click for the client, it's really a cool moment.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that it doesn't happen often, but when they say you made that so simple, which it's not always the case, but
Wish it was.
But they do always say, hey, you made that a lot easier than I thought it was going to be, which is a big thing for us, is that peace of mind and making sure that people feel comfortable. But also being honest when the goals are unrealistic, which I've had a few of those too, where they'll say, hey, I've got this much, but I need this much. And I'm like, I'm not a magician. That's impossible. But
I'd love to print money, but I can't.
Yeah. So that happens too. Do you miss anything about playing?
I've been asked that a few times, and
be careful. You just got married, so
know,
be careful.
Really, I miss a little bit of the baseball, like actually being out there pitching. It was all the outside stuff that I don't miss at all.
Yeah.
Living on the road for 6-7 months a year away from family. Just the constant kind of uncertainty of where you're going to go at any given moment.
Yeah.
You're living out of a suitcase. They could tell you, hey, you're in Washington right now. Tomorrow you're going to be in Alabama, and we don't know where you're going to be next week. And I think just kind of living like that for a few years, now having a little bit more stable lifestyle, kind of knowing where I'm going to be at next year. I like that aspect, that I don't have to deal with that anymore. But
it actually is probably good preparation for this career. The way our model is you're building your own business, so you have to be comfortable being uncomfortable. Yeah. So that aspect, I think you learned that already, which is great.
The idea of like not having the benefit right away, like early in this career, you're working to build something 3, 4, 5 years down the line. So knowing that it might not bear all the fruits of this right now, but eventually it's going to be worth all the work that you put in. And that's something I feel like baseball taught me too, is, it took 10 years to get where I wanted to go. It wasn't like I woke up one day and it was there.
Now, something that I find interesting in this office is everybody who has a baseball background so far is still coaching. And I had a soccer background. I was okay, but I hated coaching. I don't have patience for it. I don't think anybody works hard enough. I'm like, I just get frustrated.
There's a lot of that.
But So how are you with that? Because I know you're still involved with actually coaching and training.
Yeah.
So how does that go?
No, I'm with you on a few of the points. Where I'm at right now, I really love because a lot of the kids that work there, they're there for a reason. Um, I'm sure youth sports, they're not cheap anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So there's an investment to being a part of that program.
Yep.
So it kind of weeds out a little bit of more of the unseriousness of it. But yeah, there's definitely, that aspect of it that tests your patience a little bit. But I just love being around baseball.
Yeah.
And I love talking baseball. And it kind of puts me in a situation again where I can kind of be around that atmosphere. That's what I love the most about it is kind of just talking with the kids about
I think
the
that's
game.
probably why too, because I don't like the sport outside of playing it.
Yeah,
so.
I don't know. I'm not one to sit down and watch, a big league game
Yeah.
all the time, but I do love talking about
Yeah.
it. I could talk about it. I can't watch it as much.
Anytime somebody who knew me from growing up who would say, "Did you see that Premier League game?" and I'm like, "I don't watch it," and they're like, "What?" And I'm like,
there's
"No."
people that know way more about what's going on in the big leagues than I do. I can't pretend like I'm keeping up every day with that, but when it comes down to just talking the game and being around the game, that's what I like.
Yeah, for some reason I enjoy watching UFC more than anything, and I think it's because I know I couldn't get hit in the face, but I don't know. But
and
anyway,
it's quick, right? You only got to watch for 15, 20 minutes of fight, and then that's it. On to the next one.
25 sometimes.
Yeah.
But anyway, so obviously I'm excited to see what happens with you the next few years. I think, I like we're building a really cool thing here, and I think that you're a big part of what's going to happen with this next generation in our office. And I think obviously I wouldn't have brought you in here if I didn't think that you were going to go far in this industry, because part of it is when we hire people, we're protecting them from themselves too, which we know what a rough road this is. So I think with your background, with your being genuine, it comes across pretty quickly that you've got people's best interests in mind. So I think that's really important for an advisor. And, the discipline work ethic is key more than anything. So we'll see what happens here and how your career goes. We'll track it. Is there anything else you want to share with our audience that's either thinking about finance, thinking about something in sports, maybe thinking about planning a wedding, or that?
I don't want to claim any expertise on the wedding. I want to give a lot of the credit to my wife on that one.
Well, you have to give advice to another one of our advisors soon. But and then anything related to this career, is there anything that you want to share?
No, I think the biggest thing is, like you said multiple times, discipline. And, whether going back to my baseball career, for people who hope to have a future in sports or in finance, and I really think in life in general, I guess is having discipline and holding yourself accountable. I think that's a lot of, even in youth sports now, I see it everywhere, is like the lack of accountability is really.
I don't even want to bring up some of the younger family
I
members I have.
I don't want to open a can of worms for you, but
I'm frustrated.
Being able to really just look yourself in the mirror and be like, hey, did I do everything I should today?
Can I just tell you that there's a kid in my family that their parents allow them to choose whether or not to go to practice? And they paid for it.
I'll tell you what, where I'm coach right now, you'd be off the team.
I can't even fathom it.
Yeah. You gotta teach the accountability needs to be instilled at a young age.
Yeah. And I'll say most people think it's motivation, but it's not motivation. It's discipline. Discipline means you're going to do it whether you're motivated or not. And there's a big difference that you understand. So that's it's something that's hard
Motivation
for a lot of people to
goes.
understand. Yeah.
Discipline is consistent.
Yep. So, well, I appreciate you coming in here, especially so early in the career, and I hope that we can do this a few more times. And anything big happens, maybe we'll bring you in here to share some good news, some bad news, some more frustration, some more things you're learning. I think it's important for people to see not just the senior advisors in the light at the end of the tunnel, but to see the progress along the way. I say it all the time. You don't see the practice; you just see the end result all the time. You know that, so it's good to see how everything's made. So appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
That's our episode. Appreciate you tuning in, and we'll see you on the next one.